My name is Krish, co-founder and CEO of Chargebee. I grew up listening to a lot of stories all through my childhood, mainly stories from Ramayana, Mahabharata, like the Iliad and Odyssey of the Greek. And there was this endearing character, the monkey god, called Hanuman, who used to be impish, cheerful, very playful, and would always play a lot of pranks and would get into a lot of trouble. But he had great knowledge, meaning he was considered the reincarnation of Lord Shiva, and great knowledge, mighty powers. But he had this curse that he could not escape because he always used to play pranks with sages, and one of them cursed him, saying, "You will forget your superpowers just at the most important moment." And that's a curse that he couldn't escape, but it's just a mild curse. But he could remember it when a nudge comes along. And there was this moment in Ramayana when he has to fly across oceans and then save the hero, right? For the hero, he has to fly across oceans and do that. And he needed this wise monkey god called Jambavan who had to tell him that you have these superpowers, right? Fly across the ocean. And then he did that. And then there is this thing, would we know when we get a nudge? And what does that nudge look like? SaaS is proven. We all know that recurring revenue is proven. Cloud is proven, right? And yet, there is this transition that is also happening everywhere. Pretty much all the one-time enterprise software companies are all trying to make the transition into the cloud. And then there are these different verticals from which companies are actually making the transition, which is huge opportunity for all of us, right? I never imagined that billing could be serving manufacturing companies in subscription world, right? Happening before us. But at the same time, what makes us who we are? Meaning, there is a story by David Foster Wallace that he gave in his commencement speech, which is very relevant here. So there are two fishes, young fish, swimming along, and then there is this old fish which comes along and says, "Morning, boys, how's water?" And then these two fish ignore him and then keep swimming. And then suddenly one fish looks at the other and says, "What the hell is water?" The most important thing is, what is SaaS, right? Meaning, there is one way in which we understand it, but what really is SaaS? There are these fundamental questions that we tackle all the time. Let's just say there is this marketing team which wants to run a freemium experiment. Not just an experiment, it's a huge thing. And sales hates it. Right? Engineering is like, as long as I get more usage, that's good. But what should you do? What do you decide all these things based on? What is our touching stone? What's our touchstone to make that decision? And then there are those situations where the sales guy has his quota that he needs to hit, month-end quota. He knows that you have this annual special promotion that you have given to a specific accelerator companies, and this customer or a prospect comes along, and you know that he qualifies for the discount, but the customer doesn't know that. Now, what is he supposed to do? It's just that one time, can I just sneak through this annual contract without telling the customer about this discount? Or should I? What's the touchstone for this salesperson to make that right decision? And then there are those challenges that we all have when it comes to product. But the most important, beautiful thing that the customer experience that I recently saw was one of our customers, GetAccept. GetAccept is into signing contracts, helps you engage, track, and then get you contracts signed. They are in the space of Adobe. So they have this product where you take a laptop, you finish the contract, and then before you are ready to send it to somebody, you can take your mobile and then start recording a personalized message to the person who's receiving it saying, "Hey, if you have any questions related to pricing, just let me know, right? I'm sending this contract across, right? And now they personalize this message, and then finish recording. And what magically happens is the recorded video suddenly pops up in the laptop against that contract in the place where you're actually recording. Now, they could have said, record the video, upload it, and then push the button, and then now the video appears there. But then there was this internal questioning that goes around that makes them say, how do we push this boundary a little further to make this experience a little magical? What makes us actually question that? That's a constant question that we struggle with day in and day out. But when it comes to this, do we really know what has gotten us to this, right? What are those things that really helps us get there? We all have open APIs, right? We put ourselves out there where we say, the simplistic way is to say, okay, we all have REST API, and then it's out there for you to integrate, which was never seen before this, right? In the last 10 years, we see more and more companies having an open API as the first thing that we do before we even complete our product, right? We put our documentation out there for anybody to see, right? For anybody to evaluate, just like the way we allow our prospects to evaluate how good our customer service is. We let them talk to our support teams before we tell them buy the product. And then there is this other extreme. A customer of ours, which is a Finnish company called ShareTribe, which is into SaaS product that allows you to create marketplaces. But the interesting thing is, they made the entire code of their product open source. Now, the customer has a choice. They can say, I can build my business using this open source code and do it myself, but it comes from the fundamental belief that I have something much, much more of value than just the code that makes them believe my SaaS product is much more powerful and makes them take that extreme step when it comes to saying, here is a code, host it yourself, but trust me, I know how to manage this thing for you. And there is so much more on the table that they bring. And then there is a specialized knowledge that we bring. Specialization is everywhere, right? Across functions, we of course need specialists who do different things. But when a customer asks a question, let's just do a show of hands. How many of you read support tickets of your customers? Fantastic, right? I do every day. Now, why should a product manager read tickets? And most importantly, even a DevOps person, why should they even read customer tickets? There's a simple reason, right? There is an extreme meaning. The other end, where a lot of companies have all hands on deck as a philosophy when it comes to doing customer support. But the most interesting thing is, by bringing your product manager, by our DevOps person who's managing infrastructure to answer customer support ticket, we are all optimizing for better customer experience. We're not trying to build a wall saying, here's your L1, L2, L3, L4, get these tickets through multiple stages and all that. Instead, we are saying, how do I resolve the problem better? How do I make sure that my customers get the best experience when it comes to finding that answer? And that's phenomenal. In 2010, Basecamp came up with, actually wrote Rework. And that was one of my inspirations to start Chargebee. Meaning, it gave the belief that you can also bootstrap a company, right? And that's how, after 10 years job, we could actually quit. But there is this tribal knowledge where we are sharing so openly with each other. And that has never happened in the past to this extent. There are companies like Buffer, which is building company in public. It's not a public company, but building company out there in the public, putting everything out there, including salaries, conflicts, resolutions, tactics, everything out there, and then we all gain by just learning from each other. And then there is this most important aspect, value, right? I don't want us to misconstrue this based on just lifetime value of the customer, but then knowing what is value. It's not about just optimizing for value, but more importantly, what really is the value for the customer. Example, case in point is Braintree. Braintree Payments launched in 2007 timeframe, and they knew that one of the biggest customer base is going to be in the recurring revenue economy. And the most interesting thing they did in the payment space was, they said, as a recurring revenue business, your customer payment information becomes most critical, and I will make that card data portable. That became their key value proposition. They didn't really, that became their key value proposition where they said, okay, data portability or .org became the theme around which they built the business. But the most important thing is to understand what fundamentally drives value to these businesses and then focusing on that, which results in increased lifetime value of the customer, but knowing what is the value in the context of our customers matters most. Because ultimately, the contracts that we try to write, right, in a subscription world are all worthless pieces of paper if we are not able to drive value to these customers on a month-on-month basis, which is something we all understand. Now, the context of understanding all these values and then applying that better to our business is what makes us who we are. Much, much different. But the most important aspect and to internalize is that we are all service companies first who happen to be in software. And that is why all these things apply very, very differently to us. Internet has been around. We all know that a lot of people have been blogging, but very few companies are in the past era has openly built companies by sharing these things, so many aspects of building businesses like we have ever done in the past, right? And that is what makes this community special. Now, for a company of 106 people at Chargebee, how many do we think are in customer service? We like to believe that it's 106 out of 106, and internalizing that message to every new person coming in is the hardest challenge that we have in front of us. The reason is simple, right? If a DevOps person does not understand that when things go wrong, you have a critical decision to make that did not exist in the past when we were building a software company, when we did not hold customers' data, and that too, all the customers' data in one place did not happen in the past. And now we have a huge responsibility. And when things go wrong, there are critical decision points that comes up where the easiest decision to make in those situations is, let me fix it. But there is one more step prior to that, which is more important. Let me tell my customers that something is going on. Becomes an important decision. Now, will that DevOps person make such a decision? Do they understand that they are in service business? And they are not just working for this company, but they are the guardkeepers, or the gatekeepers of the data for the customer, representing the customer, and they just happen to be having this software that they are hosting and holding in production. Now, how do we internalize this message is one of the biggest challenges. So building trust, long-term value for these customers requires us to be able to do more of this. And most importantly, support used to be 20% of your annual revenues, right? Like a cost center. And no matter how shitty your product is, you don't get more than 20% of the revenue to improve your customer team. That is, you cannot ramp it up in the past, right? But now, we don't look at it as a cost center. This is the business. And it's important that we internalize this again and again because there is so much pushback from specialists internally, and this is something that we need to admit for ourselves, right? It's very easy to just come and brag and then say, oh, we all do support, right? All of us do support. But it's not as easy as that, right? It's not about just getting into help desk and then answering questions, but do we contextualize all these things in my everyday job? For a product manager to listen into every ticket or some calls and then understand, why is this customer not so happy? What makes them unhappy? And then what if I provide this one API which makes them happier? Like this one private API that I could expose. It's a decision that only that person can make. It cannot come from a customer support person. Now, all these things and paying attention to these details is what matters and makes us who we are. On a closing note, I want to touch upon this one instance in history which I think is very relevant. Bell Labs, amazing company, known for thousands of innovations, and we are all grateful for that. 1934, they had this beautiful machine built, which was an answering machine. But it was never released till 60 years later. The reason was the technology behind it. The CEO of Bell Labs used to openly talk about building a monopoly, and they were never shy about it. And they were optimizing for that monopoly. because they wanted the phones to sell everywhere. They wanted their phones everywhere. They were afraid that if they could actually provide this answering machine, what happens? And then they optimized for that. The machine, the 6 feet tall answering machine, was actually magnetic tape, which did not come into existence till it was reinvented in 1980 from Germany and then had to become hard drive. And then we all know what happened after that, right? The accelerated knowledge economy just happened, right? Microsoft and Google and so many other companies have built on that, and then now we have all of this happening at an accelerated pace, but after that 1980. We don't know what could have happened if that was available earlier. But it's important to recognize the touchstone that they used to make this decision, and then the touchstones that we use to make our decisions every day. And most importantly, it's important for us to internalize again and again and again that we are in the business of service who happen to be in software. Thank you.